So then once you have it apart, you just have to make sure that all the edges here are clean of the glue. There's big spots on the top, and then there's a little thin one all along both sides like this. And there's some here. Most of it will come off with the LCD if you're lucky. But there's some right here left. You just have to use like the little tweezers. And it really doesn't come off hard, like it's just this black adhesive and it just pulls off. Like you can see, it's really stretchy. And so once you get it started, sometimes you can just pull it like that. And it just balls up in this little stuff like that. And so yeah, so just make sure that's all clean and good. And then my LCD that I got already came with adhesive on the sides here. Then it also came with this adhesive here. It's double-sided, and you can see some is made for the top, like it has this hole here. And I'll show you once I install it. So now that you have your new screen, remember to peel the back off of this and get rid of that, so it's nice and reflective like that. And then, so you can't really tell, but I have my adhesive on here. It's clear, top and bottom. I put it on, the one that came with it, and then it's already got some on the sides of the LCD here, so I don't need to do anything there. So now to put it together, if I can show this very well. Let me zoom out a little here. Now make sure that the connector goes through the slot that it's supposed to there on the top. And make sure that your connectors go through the bottom here in the spot where they're supposed to. It's kind of hard sometimes to make sure everything feeds through properly. So now this little one here on the bottom has a separate spot further out than the rest of them do. Like that. So you have one connector here, you have these two connectors here, and then further over you have this one here. So feed them through. And then make sure that you line everything up on the bottom and on the top. Make sure that these are through all the way, and then just press down all the way around. And then just give it a little bit of heat around, not too much, but just enough to get the adhesive a little bit of heat, and then press it firmly together. So now the first thing we're going to want to do is start with the earpiece speaker. Put that back in its spot right there, and make sure that this is in the right spot. There's got a hole right there. Make sure the copper connectors are seated down good with adhesive. Next, we'll take the rear camera, set it in its place. And it can only go one way, and it goes all the way this way against this notch. Next, we're going to do the front camera. Put that back in its spot. Make sure the tape goes down to hold it in its place. And next, we're going to put the logic board back in. Now you have to watch all these different connectors as you're setting this back in here. There's connectors on all sides. Then there's also the rear camera here. Then there's the front camera and the connector besides the front camera. And then start reconnecting. There's a front camera, connector beside the front camera. There's the rear camera connector. And we can go ahead and get these wire connectors while we're here. There's the white one. It's kind of being stubborn. There we go. Make sure that that's in its groove. Then there's the black one. Put that in the right spot. And then it's time to do the dot connector. To reinstall the charging port, dot connector, everything you want to call it, watch these connectors here that are sticking up. There's a notch for them. If you pull this apart like this, you can see there's a notch for them for that to slip past there. And you will have to line up this hole with that spot right there. And it's kind of a tight fit. I mean, it's just, you just have to be careful setting stuff in there. Just remember it has adhesive for it to stick down. So now the first thing you want to do, it's kind of tight in here. This is the one that was tight earlier. So with the help of the tweezers or whatever you need to do, get this connector right in here next to the headphone jack stuck down properly. And this might feel like it's not sitting down the best, but it'll sit down. Speaker assembly helps to hold it in. So then put that connector in right there. If you can see what I'm pointing at, right, that one there. And then, so the one critical thing then is this microphone right here. So that rubber thing that I was telling you about earlier, you need to find that, and you need to turn it right so the hole lines up with the little hole on the microphone. And then what I found is if you you might have to mess with this a little bit. If you kind of squeeze it together, not too hard, squeeze it together and sit it down in there together with the tweezers, and it pushes right down in there. You have to make sure that this is folded right. The fold is turned up. The bend there is turned up. Sort of like, imagine that as an elbow, and this is your wrist down here, and yeah. So if that makes any sense. So anyways, make sure that's seated in the right. Next we'll get our cables back in place. Make sure they snap in properly. Somehow I got them crossed here a little bit. The white one has to stay to the other side of this black one here. Okay. So then next, make sure that this wire is down in its right channel. It's got one on both ends. Also make sure that this thing here has room to sit down beside the wire, like that. Hopefully that was showing okay. So now that that's back in, we go on to the next step. You would want to bring these in, and the best way to do these that I've found is first make sure to get the connector lined up, since that's the most important. Now there are holes over here to check and see. See, sometimes you have to get some slack back from the back here. It has to be stretched a little. So there's also a hole here and a hole here to line up to make sure that you're in the right spot. So you could do that as well to check for length, to make sure that you're lining up with the connector properly. So then there's this connector over here. And Again, make sure that those are sitting in their little holes right there. And then there's this connector here that goes on top of that. And then there's also this connector. And it's pretty self-explanatory as far as where everything goes. You'll be able to tell where it fits and all that. And just make sure that the tape here is stuck down. And make sure that this doesn't come back out. If it does, just make sure to set it back in. Now to reinstall the logic cover, you just take it and set it down on top of there. There's a couple clips on the top part here that snap in. Otherwise it just sets on top. So what I would recommend is to put in the two corner ones, and then these two corners, so all four corners, and then I would put in the black screw that goes here before you forget it, and then that's the only one that's different. The rest are all the same. To put the back cover back on, I would just set it on here. Then you can start anywhere. You can start at the top and just make sure that it's lined up. Start snapping things together. Just go down around the side. Keep going around. Make sure that it's popped in everywhere. There's no clips in the middle. And then last but not least, put in your SIM card tray. So now that we got it all back together, let's see if it works. And yes, it starts up. So there we are. Just wanted to show you that it is working. And starting up, and everything looks good. Okay, thanks for watching.